Hello there and welcome to World News Program, streaming to you live on All 24 News. I'm your host, Karim Zachary, and up next are the headlines. 21 martyrs fell in 7 Zionist massacres within just 24 hours, in addition to more casualties from occupation bombings in Khan Yunis and Deir al-Balah in Gaza. Also in our news, the Zionist occupation executed 7 foreign volunteers from an American relief organization in Deir al-Balah. The United Nations rules out defending the killers of the international aid workers in Gaza, and global condemnation follows with demands for thorough investigation and accountability for the perpetrators. Also ahead, the Rafah markets see soaring prices amidst food shortages, leaving mothers distraught as malnutrition affects children. And Algerian aid persists, reaching Gaza through Al Arish airport despite the siege. Also ahead, the death toll from the Zionist attack on the Iranian consulate in Syria reaches 13. Iran vows retaliation, prompting an emergency UN Security Council session amid widespread international condemnation. Stay tuned, we've got all the details right after the break. Hello again and welcome to the details. First off, we delve into Gaza file, as in the past 24 hours, Zionist forces conducted 7 massacres in Gaza, resulting in 71 Palestinians martyred and 102 injured. The government media office stated that since last October, the toll of the Zionist aggression has reached 32,916 martyrs and 75,494 wounded. Many remain trapped without rescue due to impassable roads. And on Tuesday, occupation aircraft bombed Khan Yunis and Deir al-Balah in Gaza, resulting in 5 Palestinians martyred and several injured. 3 were killed near the communications building in Khan Yunis, while 2 others died in a house bombing in Abu al-Ajan area east of Deir al-Balah. The Zionist entity targeted and executed 7 members of the World Central Kitchen organization in Deir al-Balah, central Gaza Strip. The victims were in cars traveling from northern Gaza to Rafah when missiles from drones struck their vehicles. Usama Ayadi has the details.
7 workers from the non-profit organization World Central Kitchen have been killed in a Zionist airstrike, throwing humanitarian relief efforts in the Palestinian territory into chaos. Workers at the charity organization, which was spearheading efforts to alleviate looming famine in Gaza, were cold-bloodedly bombed by the Zionist air forces in another confirmation of the occupation's relentless and merciless military onslaughts on the Gaza Strip.
Secretary General extends his condolences to the staff of the World Central Kitchen following the killing of its staff members in Gaza who were on a humanitarian mission. The multiplicity of such events is the inevitable result of the way this war is currently being conducted. We reaffirm yet again the need for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire.
The workers were part of a group traveling in 3 armored vehicles branded with the charity's logo. World Central Kitchen affirmed that those killed were from the UK, Australia, Poland and Palestine, as well as a US-Canada dual citizen. However, they were not spared from the Zionist entity's genocidal war against any living being in the area.
This was an agreed mission with this team. It was deconflicted. Deconflicted means both sides know they're coming, both sides have agreed. The car was well marked. It was very clear it was World Central Kitchen. Now, this is happening, and remember, hundreds of healthcare workers have been killed while doing their job. Ambulance drivers, And of course, thousands of civilians, more than 13,000 of them children.
The bodies of the aid workers were taken to a hospital in Gaza's southern city of Rafah on the Egyptian border. However, the 7 of them were dead.
The risks to humanitarian workers have been there for months. This is just a very clear and illustrative example of the challenges, the deadly challenges that humanitarian workers face every day in Gaza, be they internationals or, as most of them are, Palestinians.
After severe pressure by international community, the Zionist entity's leadership finally confirmed the killing and apologized for what was labeled as a mistake. In contrast, no signs of easing the pressure on the Palestinian unarmed civilians are on site. Palestinians continue to bear the brunt of the Zionist war machine, despite the UN Security Council's latest resolution to end the war.
And in reaction, the Gaza government media office confirmed the deliberate assassination of an international relief team by occupation warplanes. Director Ismail Thawabta urged an immediate halt to occupation massacres in Gaza and accountability for its ongoing aggression, now nearing 7 months.
The Israeli army of occupation killed an entire foreign team here in the Gaza Strip. This team consists of British nationality holders, Polish, Australian, and a 4th nationality that is unknown until this moment, in addition to a martyr from our Palestinian people. They were cold-bloodedly killed earlier, using its airplanes that we can hear above our heads and the Israeli tanks which are in the Gaza Strip.
And in this context still, UN Humanitarian Coordinator Martin Griffiths stated on Tuesday that it's indefensible, to justify the killing of international aid workers in a Zionist bombing in Deir al-Balah central Gaza Strip. He condemned the crime targeting aid workers from the World Central Kitchen, reiterating the urgent need to cease the war in Gaza.
Angry over the killing of aid workers from the World Central Kitchen in Gaza, they were heroes. They were killed while trying to feed the hungry. My condolences to their families and colleagues. Despite all the talks about a ceasefire, this war is still stealing the best of us. I cannot be defending the actions of those behind this crime. This war must stop.
Australia demanded accountability for the occupation's assassination of the international relief team in Deir al-Balah. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese condemned the targeting of humanitarian workers as unacceptable and affirmed support for a political solution ensuring justice for Palestinians.
Unacceptable. Australia expects full accountability for the deaths of aid workers, which is completely unacceptable. Aid workers and those doing humanitarian work, and indeed all innocent civilians, need to be provided with protection. Australia has had a very clear position of supporting a sustainable ceasefire, of calling for it for some period of time, of calling for humanitarian aid to go to the people of Gaza.
In other reactions, Poland demanded clarifications regarding the raid resulting in the killing of 7 employees of the World Central Kitchen, including a Pole. Poland's foreign minister announced his country's intent to conduct its own investigation into the Zionist crime. For his part, British Foreign Secretary David Cameron emphasized UK's expectation of comprehensive explanation and stressed the need for protecting humanitarian workers. Meanwhile, the United States called for an investigation into the targeting of International Central Kitchen Organization employees, with the National Security Council spokeswoman Adrienne Watson expressing concern.
We've spoken directly to the Israeli government about this particular incident. We've urged a swift, a thorough, and impartial investigation to understand exactly what happened. And as we have throughout this conflict, we've impressed upon the Israelis the absolute imperative of doing more to protect innocent civilian lives, be they Palestinian children, women, and men, or be they aid workers.
Shocked and saddened to hear the reported deaths of aid workers in Gaza. We're urgently working to confirm all the details, but my thoughts right now with their friends and family. They're doing fantastic work bringing alleviation to the suffering that many are experiencing in Gaza. They should be praised and commended for what they're doing. They need to be allowed to do that work unhindered, and it's incumbent on Israel to make sure that they can do that, and we're asking Israel to investigate what happened urgently, because clearly there are questions that need to be answered.
EU Commissioner Josep Borrell condemned the Zionist raid on a humanitarian convoy in Gaza, calling for an investigation into the incident and the implementation of the recent UN Security Council resolution for an immediate ceasefire and enhanced civilian protection.
I've seen that there is a strong...
And on Tuesday, China condemned the Zionist occupation's targeting of a relief team convoy in Gaza, Deir al-Balah, resulting in the deaths of 7 volunteers, calling it a violation of international law. The Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin stated that Beijing opposes any actions harming civilians, destroying civilian infrastructure, and violating international law.
China opposes all acts that harm civilians, damage civilian facilities, and violate international law. We are shocked and condemn the attack on international aid workers in Gaza and express deep condolences for the victims. Civilians must not be targets of the attacks, and the safety of the international aid workers must not be threatened.
Famine looms in northern Gaza, projected to hit by May and potentially spread across the enclave by July, warns global hunger watchdog. The suffering worsens, with mothers in Gaza weeping as malnutrition takes hold. Here's Sofian Kinturi with more.
As fear of famine in Gaza escalates, mothers watch their children die before their eyes, unable to do anything. Iman Murtaha is one of these mothers. Her daughter has been in the hospital for 2 months. The young child suffers from liver inflammation, low blood sugar, and malnutrition.
She has been in a hospital for 2 months, suffering, and every day her condition worsens. She weighs 7 kilograms. Now she is 4, and every day she loses more weight. My daughter is deteriorating, and I can do nothing for her. I watch her die before my eyes, and I can do nothing for her.
Famine is imminent in Gaza, and the consequences are already impacting its inhabitants, especially the children. In addition to malnutrition, Palestinian mothers speak of severe lack of clean water, medicines, and basic security due to Zion's bombings in hospitals.
I feel them dying before my eyes. It's my daughter. It's been 5 days without food or drink for her. I don't know what to do for her. I suffer. I'm tired. There are 2 of them, not 1. There is neither food nor milk available. The girl suffers from malnutrition. She is tired. The situation is so difficult.
Getting help has become a matter of life or death in Gaza during 6 months Zionist genocide that has killed more than 32,000 Palestinians and injured more than 75,500.
Residents of Rafah, home to over 1.4 million Palestinians, mostly displaced, endure soaring living costs amid aid scarcity and food shortages. This is exacerbated by ongoing Zionist aggression perpetuating the genocide in Gaza. Here's Salman Aseb.
In Gaza's southern city of Rafah, where some 1.4 million Palestinians, more than half of the territory's population, has sought refuge, are now struggling to buy food and goods as prices rise in Rafah's markets, especially with the scarcity of aid and food shortages amid the war of extermination and the ongoing Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip.
There are no banks to release the salaries of employees. People want to buy everything and stock up their homes and fridges, but at the same time, goods are very expensive for both sellers and customers. People don't have the cash to secure the needs of their families, their households.
The UN and international aid groups said aid deliveries have been impeded by Zionist military restrictions, ongoing hostilities, and a breakdown of public order, leaving many Palestinians in the brink of famine and starvation.
As a displaced person who has been here in Rafah for around 5 months, I haven't received aid. It is a coupon that covers you with food and drinks for a week or two. The living costs are very expensive, and people who had money with them, 10,000 or 2,000 shekels, spent it during this period.
Food prices in Gaza have experienced a sharp increase in the wake of the ongoing Zionist onslaught in the Gaza Strip, further inflaming the hardships of residents, as almost all households in the Gaza Strip are already skipping meals every day, which compromises the health and well-being of an entire future generation.
Algerian emergency aid to Gaza persists through Egyptian Arish airport for the second consecutive week, part of an ongoing air bridge established to provide essential supplies to the Strip amid 6 months of Zionist aggression. Usama Ayadi again.
Algeria has extended a helping hand to Gaza amidst ongoing struggles. 2 Algerian Air Force planes landed at Al Arish airport in Egypt, carrying 168 tons of aid destined for Gaza. The aid includes essential supplies like food, medicine, medical equipment, and tents.
The Algerian Red Crescent, along with the Algerian Air Forces, continue to deliver more humanitarian aid and foodstuffs to our brothers in Gaza via the Arish airport.
These 2 cargoes contain substantial amount of aid, which consists of essential foodstuffs.
The Algerian Ministry of National Defense confirmed that the humanitarian aid facilitated by the Algerian Red Crescent was dispatched following the directive of the President of the Republic. This aid aims to alleviate the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza and would be transported through the Rafah crossing. Emphasizing Algeria's enduring commitment, the ministry highlighted the nation's solidarity with the Palestinian cause, echoing sentiments shared by both its leadership and citizens.
So far, we are working in tight coordination with the Palestinian Red Crescent, as well as the Egyptian Red Crescent, to define the needs, as well as the most adequate way to deliver the aid to Gaza. Surely in the future there will be more aid. Everyone agrees that foodstuffs are the most essential due to the current famine and the siege on the Strip.
Algeria's advocacy extends beyond its borders as it calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. It urged the UN Security Council to convene a meeting addressing the humanitarian crisis in the region, stressing the importance of ensuring consistent access for humanitarian aid to Gaza.
Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez announced plans to officially recognize the state of Palestine within 6 months, citing it as vital for resolving the regional conflict. He also urged adherence to the Security Council ceasefire resolution and stated that the decision would first go through the Council of Ministers before being presented to the Parliament.
It is urgent that the ceasefire demanded by the United Nations Security Council last week be implemented, and which is also binding, but it also has to be a permanent ceasefire. It is a necessary step to open a political process that would put an end to this conflict, a process that leads to the real and effective materialization of the two-state solution for which Spain has always defended, the recognition of the Palestinian state, which implies, as I have said, the recognition of the Palestinian state. For those who have not yet, Spain has also done it, and the full recognition of Israel by the international community.
Y el reconocimiento pleno de Israel por parte de la comunidad internacional.
And in other topical news, the death toll from the Zionist attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus on Monday rose to 13, including 7 members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei vowed to punish the Zionist entity in response. Here's Sofian Kinturi again.
On Monday, April 1st, the Zionist entity carried out airstrikes in Damascus, Syria, targeting the Iranian consulate. The attack resulted in the deaths of 2 commanders of Al-Quds Force along with 5 other members of the IRGC. This escalation is viewed as a provocation towards Iran and represents a significant blow to the axis of resistance. Iran denounced the attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus by the Zionist entity, calling it a violation of international obligations. In the letter to the UN Security Council, they called for an urgent meeting and urged the international community to respond.
These Zionist attacks constitute a flagrant violation of the Charter of the United Nations, international law, and the basic principle of immunity of diplomatic and consular premises, as stipulated in the 1961 Treaty on Diplomatic Relations, the 1963 Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, as well as the 1973 Convention on the Punishment of Crimes against Internationally Protected Persons, including diplomatic agents.
Iran further stated that it would decide on appropriate response and punishment against the entity following the attack on its consulate in Damascus, raising concerns about potential miscalculations.
Day by day, we are witnessing the strengthening of the resistance front, the disgust of free states, and hatred of the illegitimate nature of Israel. This cowardly crime will not go unanswered.
Syria expresses solidarity with Iran and votes that such cowardly actions won't stop it from backing Palestinians and just causes wherever they are.
Our people got used to responding to such cowardly attacks and proved to humanity that such aggressions must only be confronted by more resolve and backup and support to our people in Gaza and to revolutions in brotherly countries like Iraq and southern Lebanon or elsewhere.
Zionist targeting of the Iranian consulate in Damascus, viewed as Iranian territory under international law, has placed Iran in a difficult position. The traditional rules of engagement no longer apply, and Tehran feels compelled to respond as not reacting is no longer an option.
Still with the same topic, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the targeting of the Iranian consulate in Damascus, urging respect for international law to avoid escalation and warning of devastating consequences for civilians in the already unstable region. And similarly, Algeria condemned the Zionist attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus. Ambassador Hamar bin Jama, Algeria's permanent representative to the UN, emphasized during the session discussing the aggression at Russia's request that the attack violates international law. He called for a strong stance against this provocative act, warning of its potential to escalate tensions with regional or global repercussions.
I want to tell our heartfelt condolences to the people and government of Iran following the deadly airstrike by the Israeli aviation on their diplomatic premises in Damascus yesterday. This attack is a clear violation of international law, particularly the inviolability of diplomatic and consular premises as outlined in the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations and Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. Such a grave breach of international obligation by the Israeli occupying power cannot be justified or tolerated. We must raise a strong voice against the dangerous implication of this provocation, which could lead to escalating tensions and wider regional consequences.
The Algerian diplomat urged the UN Security Council to act firmly against violations of state sovereignty and diplomatic immunity.
The UN Security Council must respond firmly and decisively to this challenge to fundamental principles of state sovereignty, diplomatic sanctity, and respect for territorial integrity. The integrity of our international order hangs on the balance, and there must be repercussion for such flagrant disregard of the law to reinforce our collective commitment to upholding it.
Let's catch up on more stories making headlines around the globe with Salman Asib this time.
Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Joe Biden discussed tensions between their countries in a phone call today. Xi warned that China won't tolerate US restrictions on its high-tech development. Biden emphasizes US measures to safeguard national security. They also discussed peace in Taiwan Strait and freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. Senegal's new president, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, has promised significant changes and increased sovereignty to bring calm after years of turmoil. He was sworn in on Tuesday in the presence of Senegalese officials and numerous African leaders. Faye pledged to defend territorial integrity, promote national independence, and work towards African unity.
La charge du président de la République du Sénégal.
The Polisario Front warned Spanish companies against using inaccurate maps in Western Sahara, emphasizing the need to respect international law. The front highlighted the responsibility to companies to adhere to recognize borders between Western Sahara and Morocco, as acknowledged by international organizations and courts. The Algerian Sonatrach Group has decreased the official selling price of petroleum gas for April by over 3% compared to March, citing a drop in demand. According to Reuters, citing traders, the company reduced the official selling price to propane by $5 per ton to $535, and for butane by $10 per ton to $570. Sonatrach's official selling prices for LPG serve as a benchmark for contracts to supply their product in the Mediterranean, Black Sea, and Turkey regions.
Well, that's the end of our program. Thank you for watching and take care and have a good one.